on using it, just so I assume no one else can gain any benefits from it once we're done with it. And so the order comes down not only just to eject these
well, it's also
domes,
it's also a matter of navigational hazard too. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean,
you don't want your spaceships crashing into.
If you see, actually, right now we actually got a shot. So like this is one of these huge domes on the side of the ship, and like the whole things will pop up. That's a picture of the moon now, but yeah, there we go. There we go. So like the whole thing there would pop up and go off, and then be detonated with a nuclear bomb. Yeah, a nuclear bomb, I should say. Anyway, so there's that aspect of the show, and then like I was going to say also, sort of earlier when we were talking about Trumbull, you can see there it's like. That's one of the things that surprised me is that these ships look like Star Wars ships, quote-unquote Star Wars ships. Yeah. And so, of course, they're not quote-unquote Star Wars ships. Star Wars ships are quote-unquote silent running ships.
Yeah, but you have to understand something. Trumbull, even though he wasn't credited for the special effects in Star Wars, he was one of the main special effects guys on that.
Right. They went to him for advice. They're going to him for help.
They hired him.
No, they actually hired him. Okay,
he wasn't credited, but he was one of the top special effects guys in all three of the first Star Wars films. He received no credit on that or Alien, which he also did the special effects on.
There you go.
But but the reason was he had fallen out of favor.
Oh, I see.
With the people in Hollywood for whatever reason, but they still wanted to hire him for his expertise, but he didn't get credit.
Well, if you look at those shots, I'm saying it's like if you look at that shot, like that is like I said, that looks like a ship from Star Wars.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's like that, and this is a few years, of course, before Star Wars.
5 years.
It really is it really is sort of this. That's what I was saying about how it's kind of this bridge between, if you will, 2001
and Star Wars.
And Star Wars. If you have those, because 2001 sort of starts this ball rolling.
And that was one of the significant things about Silent Running was the fact that you had 2001 in 1968, you had Star Wars in 1977, and it was the only science fiction film in between the two. Making it just absolutely significant.
Well, exactly. I mean, you got to think too. It's like we were talking earlier about the television, but I mean, movies were much the same way in that there was not as much media being produced, and there certainly was not as much science fiction being produced by a long shot as they are maybe comparable to today when. Half the movies are science fiction or fantasy.
Well, you have to understand, back in 1972, science fiction was considered box office poison.
Right, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. A science fiction movie was a movie made for $100,000 to make $200,000.
Right.
Like Attack of the Crab Monsters, Plan 9 from Outer Space, Robot Monster.
Something they can think with a little TNA
Earth versus the Flying Saucers,
Exactly. It was looked at as like a niche market that was going to have a guaranteed small market that you could count on because they were going to go to the drive-in or whatever and watch this type of movie. Yeah. So these guys were saying, well, first of all, we're going to invest $1 million, which is not a huge sum for major movies by that point.
They spent $20 million on Silent Running, just so you know.
But then they said, didn't they originally, though, there was part of something.
Originally it was supposed to be $1 million budget. But as they started shooting it,
even that is a big budget for a science fiction movie in those days.
Yeah, $100,000 was usually the budget.
So to even start at $1 million in those days means that the people that were making this movie were committed to a vision of some type, or else you wouldn't commit the kind of dollars to a science fiction type of a film.
Oh yeah.
So, but in my opinion, 2001 for good or bad. I mean, it's very out there. It's very sort of deep, cerebral, read between the lines stuff. Therefore, just looking at Silent Running in comparison, it's going to look more pop arty compared to that because everything that's come after 2001 is not as arty as 2001. That's pretty much set the bar as far as artiness in science fiction.
Well, basically, I heard this from people in the industry that after Silent Running came out in '72. They made a movie called Star Crash, which bombed, which was usually
Star Crash. Yeah. With
Marjo Gottner, Carolyn Monroe.
Carolyn Monroe, that's
and Christopher Plummer.
And Christopher Plummer.
And David Hasselhoff. Talking about humble beginnings.
Yeah, dude. That's a great one.
But it bombed at the box office.
Well, it's a terrible movie.
But it was fun in its badness.
It's a great movie. Star Crash.
As a camp, it worked.
I highly recommend anyone to watch Star Crash. You will have a great time.
For a good laugh.
You will have a great time watching Star Crash.
But
I think Christopher Plummer at the end of the movie, he goes, "Stop the flow of time."
That's it.
And
apparently that's not a problem.
exactly.
Of course, they don't freeze when that happens.
No, just the good guys. The good guys don't freeze. Just the bad guys. Yeah. That's a great one.
But the thing was it bombed.
That's a great one for Carol Monroe alone in the bikini thing.
Leather bikini. She was hot. Yeah. But the thing was when it came out, it bombed.
Yeah.
And the money men said, well, we shot Silent Running for $20 million. It made $30 million its initial release, and we had no advertising.
Yeah.
So whatever they did in that film worked. So what they did when they did Alien, when they did The Matrix, when they did Star Wars, when they did with the exception of The Black Hole, but almost every other major science fiction film, they would sit down. Everyone who's working on this film, from the guys who did the lighting to editing, the actors, the director, whatever your job was, and also the construction guys who built the sets, they would sit them down and they say, okay, do it the same.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, like you were saying earlier, is one of the main things is take character seriously.
Yeah.
All or most of those movies you described were successful films, and all of them, or most of them,
had three-dimensional characters.
Take characters at least seriously, even if it's in a pop slice of cheese. The characters it's real stakes for the characters involved, and the characters are fleshed out people. That's one of the other things.
But I'm saying
it
ended a lot of the stock characters of science fiction.
Exactly. I mean, you compare it to a movie. Okay, you compare it to a movie like Forbidden Planet or something like that, which is another landmark film of early science fiction where.
I liked it a lot, but
it's a great film. It's a great film, but for many of the same reasons, maybe the Star Crash is a good movie. It's a great film for. I mean,
it works for what it is.
It works for what it is, but the thing is, the special effects and that kind of the time and attention they took to that still are impressive to this day, and they still have you create a unique world, which is what you want in great science fiction. So for that, it sort of was one of the earlier ones that did that successfully and really took the time to do that. Then you have 2001 that comes along, and it's, like I said, it's telling a very sort of out there story. Now you have Silent Running, and I think Silent Running is the first example where you combine the great special effects with a story, though, that is more appealed to a pop culture or a mass audience. It's something that people can relate to on a more visceral level when they're watching this movie experience, because they're identifying with the people on the screen and they're identifying with their problems.
Well, this is what was really unique for Silent Running was they told the people when they're making it, we're not making a science fiction film, we're making an anti-science fiction film.
Right, or like we're making a film that just happens to be set in the future or whatever, about people like us.
The whole idea was this is a drama that just happens to be set in outer space.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we're gonna have some funky people in the story. Like
that represents a shift in the way that they approach science fiction in films. Because
they
for a
threw
long
out
time
all
they
the
didn't
stock
do that.
characters.
For a long time they didn't do that. You had the scientists.
They almost never did it.
The bad scientists.
You had the evil. You had the mad scientists.
And it was all very
you had
the
square god ex-military man,
exactly,
Captain Hero.
Right.
You had the dim-witted sidekick.
You had
the beautiful but helpless heroine.
Right. And it was all sort of very very
melodramatic.
Exactly. And a lot of it's great stuff, and a lot of it's a lot of fun.
It's fun for what it is, but
it's
not good drama.
It changed around that era, and Silent Running is a great sort of landmark film to look at. Another thing is, for instance, that it also carries a very strong environmental message. And that has also been referred to as the first environmental film, or first film with a real environmental message.
It was.
Because of the tree stuff and the nature stuff, saving those. It's funny because it's this science fiction movie, but the first shot of it is of a forest, and maybe you could describe that first shot and why it makes it unique.
Well, it's interesting because a lot of people who watched the movie at the beginning, they thought they were on Earth.
Right.
The scenes,
exactly.
Where you just have a close-up of a snail,
a toad,
a frog, and a turtle, a baby turtle, and
he's right on top of it, though. It's with this. It's very
a fly
good.
Cam, I think
he's right on top of it, and like we were saying about this guy, he made a lot of innovations in cameras. He invented some cameras.
Yeah, he was an engineer, Doug Trumbull. Yeah, he's
so he really got these very cool for the time. That's one of the things that surprised me as well. I was like, those very first shots were very well done because like for the time when this came out, to have a camera that small and he's just going right in over
all
the
these
top
snails
of these,
and these flowers,
right inside this toad's face almost. You know, going right by this toad and. Those shots are hard to get, and they're hard to get back then, especially.
Even more so.
Even more so.
You know, they were inventing. Well, they were inventing.
We're talking about 1972.
They were going.
We're talking about a camera about that big in 1972. That's small. You know, for back then.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, the thing was also you have to understand something. The robots. You know, were completely groundbreaking too.
Right.
You know,
the robots.
Well, let's talk about the robots a little bit.
The robots. Now, anybody that watches this movie. You know, depending on how much television you watch and how familiar you are with, here's a couple shots.
Huey, Dewey, and Louie.
Yeah. You know, the thing about the robots in this movie is that they are played by
amputees.
People that have no legs. People have no legs. And so these are guys that walk around sort of on their arms. And they built these costumes specifically to
they weigh 20 pounds.
Sort of like fit around the guys like a shell.
Vacuum formed styrene, plastic.
And as a result, when you're watching this movie, you're like,
how do they do that?
How are they doing that? Because it's like for a long time.
George Lucas was at the premiere of the film.
Especially back then.
And he watched that
Especially
movie,
back then.
and he thought they were real robots.
I'm sure he wasn't the only person.
You know, and he wasn't. No, he wasn't. This is one of the funny things. Cheryl Sparks, Mark Persons, and Larry Weisenhunt were in the audience, and Doug Trumbull personally thanked them for their hard work and asked everyone to give them a round of applause.
These are the three actors that played the robots.
Robots. And Lucas is watching the film. And he's saying to himself, I don't see these guys in this movie anywhere. But boy, are those robots cute. He never made the connection.
And the thing is, the robots also look like they could just be pulled right out of Star Wars. You know, it's like those it's like the Star Wars, you can see, there's another connection.
Lucas tried to buy the robots.
The art direction on those robots, the art direction on those robots is identical to the type of art direction you see in Star Wars. They have these little... They have these little things that come out, arms that like R2-D2, the front of them. You can see right there, they have all these little sort of doohickeys.
And those are lights there too that they can shine.
But at the same time, they also look very functional.
Yeah, practical.
They look very lived in.
Very utilitarian.
And they look very utilitarian, like these things would actually be useful to have around. That also was a new thing, that silent running brings to the fore.
Yeah, because before robots were always the bad guys.
Even 2001 is
Hal's
more
the bad
beautiful.
Guy, you know?
But I'm saying though, even 2001 is, the things in 2001 are more beautiful than they have to be. Silent running is really the first,
down and dirty utilitarian.
It's a down and dirty utilitarian sort of trucker.
Truckers in outer space.
Lived-in universe. And that's one of the, that's the first time I remember seeing that. So like that's another thing.
That happened by accident.
That has been copied in every movie since.
Absolutely. But that happened by accident actually. And the thing was they knew they didn't have a lot of money to spend on this film. So they decided to use an abandoned aircraft carrier. For the spaceship.
So they're on a boat.
So they're on a real aircraft carrier named the Valley Forge.
Oh, nice.
And
Which
this
is
the weird thing was when they were writing the script. The ship was going to be called the Valley Forge.
Right.
And it was just by coincidence. Total coincidence that they were shooting it on a ship called the Valley Forge as well.
Right.
It was completely by accident.
Oh, really? It was solely.
Yeah. And it's like they asked him, did you find an aircraft carrier we can use for the Valley Forge? They said yes. And they asked him, well, what's the name of it? They said it's called the Valley Forge. Same name, But the accident or design or cosmic or whatever you want to call it, But
both.
All of the above, But the thing was they added a few. They got some TV screens, black and white ones that they bought cheap, and they just put them. In several, all over the place.
Okay, so they're making it look like there's some kind of readout.
That's going on.
You're going around the ship. You're looking up at the stuff.
But a lot of those things weren't hooked up to anything.
No, they're just they're just blinking.
Yeah, you just see the static coming off of them.
Right.
Unless you push a button, they don't. They don't go to a video monitor.
No, they're just static.
They're just static. But it gives you that sense of you're really on a big old space freighter, and they intentionally didn't hide the wires or the pipes. They wanted them in there to give it that raw sort of look.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying.
It worked,
And not only that, but it's also been copied ever since.
Oh,
we've never have gone back to that sort of clean.